Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. Side. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jagacharya Chittana Sadasamad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavindra ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Sri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Sam Kund Radha Kund Girivardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navadvip Dham ki jai. Swami to Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Ganga Mai ki jai. Jamuna Mai ki jai. Tulasi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Swami to Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to your lotus feet, to Srila Prabhupada. I'm so happy to have Your Holiness with us today. You're highly welcome. We shall put the verse on the screen.
All right.
Then you can start. Thank you very much.
I was thinking that before I speak, I'll just sing the Mangala Charna prayers.
Okay. Yes, Maharaj. There's no problem.
Although we did hear Srila Prabhupada sing Jaya.
Yeah, it's okay. As you wish.
Okay, thank you. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tha Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Harijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Gurudeva, Srila Gurudeva. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Pariprajakacharya Stotra Satasri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Pariprajakacharya Stotra Satasri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. So, before I read today's verse, I will leave you for a minute and I'll be right back. Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. So, before I read today's verse, I will Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
So today's verse is very much connected with the previous verse. Srila Prabhupada did speak on this verse, today's verse, Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.29, and he connected it very much to the previous verse. So we will also read that. And the two verses together describe the relationship between the disciple and the spiritual master. As Srila Prabhupada said, when the male is potent and the female is fertile, then conception takes place and a child is born. And in the same way, when the spiritual master is bona fide and the disciple is genuine, bhakti takes birth, transcendental knowledge. So so these two verses illustrate, the bona fide spiritual master and the genuine disciple. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Itam Sharat Pravishika Rituharer Vishrinvato Menusavam Yashomalam Sankirtyamana Munibir Mahatmabir Bhakti Pravritta Marajas Tamopaha. Itam Sarat Pravishikav Ritu Harer Vrishinvato Menusavam Yashomalam Sankirtyamana Munibir Mahatmabir Bhakti Pravritamarajas Tamopaha. Itam, thus, Sharat, autumn, Praviksho, rainy season, Ritu, 2 seasons, Hare, of the Lord, Vishrinvata, continuously hearing, me, myself, Anusavam, constantly, Yashaha Amalam, unadulterated glories, Sankirtyamanam, chanted by, Munibi, the great sages, Mahatmabi, great souls, Bhakti, devotional service, Pravritta, began to flow, Atma, living being, Raja, mode of passion, Tama, mode of ignorance, Upaha, vanishing. Translation. Thus, during 2 seasons, the rainy season and autumn, I had the opportunity to hear these great souled sages constantly chant the unadulterated glories of the Lord Hari. As the flow of my devotional service began, the coverings of the modes of passion and ignorance vanished. So, report by Srila Prabhupada. Transcendental loving service for the Supreme Lord is the natural inclination of every living being. Yes, this is confirmed in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita in different places. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has declared, Jive Swarupai Krishna Nityadas, that the constitutional position of the living entity is that he is the eternal servant of Krishna. And as also quoted in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunai, that love for Krishna is eternally established within the heart. It is not something to be gained from any other source. And by association with good devotees, hearing and chanting about Krishna, that dormant love is awakened. So that is our, yes, so transcendentally loving service for the Supreme Lord is the natural inclination of every living being. The instinct is dormant in everyone, but due to the association of material nature, the modes of passion and ignorance cover this from time immemorial. If, by the grace of the Lord and the great souled devotees of the Lord, a living being becomes fortunate enough to associate with the unadulterated devotees of the Lord and gets a chance to hear the unadulterated glories of the Lord, certainly the flow of devotional service takes place like the flow of a river. So throughout Srila Prabhupada's purports, he indirectly refers to verses without mentioning them. But practically everything that Srila Prabhupada writes in his purports are, a combination of his own realization and also the statements of scripture in other places. So, can we get the verse and purport back? So here, he is paraphrasing, by the grace of the Lord and the great soul devotees of the Lord, a living being becomes fortunate enough to associate with the unadulterated devotees of the Lord. And certainly the flow of devotional service takes place. So here, Srila Prabhupada's words echo the statement of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagavana Jiva, Guru Krishna Prasade Pai, Bhakti Lata Bija. Brahmanda Brahmite, that means within, living entities wandering in different planetary systems in the universe. Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagavana Jiva. Bhagavan means fortunate. A fortunate living entity, Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagavana Jiva, Guru Krishna Prasade Pai, by the mercy of Guru and Krishna, Bhakti Lata Bij, one receives the seed of the creeper of devotional service. And in commenting on these verses in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Prabhupada says that Krishna, who is in the heart of every living entity, understands the sincerity of a living entity. And if he sees that a living entity is sincere, he arranges for that person to get the association of devotees. And then he adds that the International Society for Krishna Consciousness is meant to give fortunate souls the association of devotees. So we see that this principle enacted in the life of Narada Muni, who at the time, of course, was not the great sage Narada Muni, but he was the son of a maidservant who was serving great souls. As it's mentioned here, Mahatmas, great souls, and Munis, thoughtful spiritual philosophers. And he got the opportunity to take the remnants of their foodstuffs and to hear them speak the unadulterated glories of the Lord. And by serving them and by taking the remnants of their foodstuffs and by hearing them speak the glories of the Lord, this young boy, simple son of a maidservant to the great souls, he got the opportunity to become the great saint Narada Muni. So can we see the verse again? So, if by the grace of the Lord and the great souled devotees of the Lord, a living being becomes fortunate enough to associate with the unadulterated devotees of the Lord, and gets a chance to hear the unadulterated glories of the Lord, certainly the flow of devotional service takes place like the flow of a river. There's also a beautiful verse in the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Tasmat Sanmuritam Sanmukitam Paradita Vatsam. And it describes that flow, the flow of the talks of the saintly persons. Yeah. The river flows on till she reaches the sea. Similarly, pure devotional service flows by the association of pure devotees till it reaches the ultimate goal, namely transcendental love of God. And the same point is made in the section of Chaitanya Charitamrita that describes the Bhakti Lata beach, that Malihana, that when one receives the seed, one should become a Mali, a gardener, and plant the seed in his heart and water the seed. And what is the watering? It's chanting and hearing about Krishna. One should water the seed. But one should also take care that no weeds sprout up around the devotional creeper. And Chaitanya Charitamrita says that sometimes these weeds very closely resemble the devotional creeper. And so we as devotees or aspiring devotees always have to take care to make sure that the watering, which is meant to nourish pure devotional service, does not water weeds, which are material desires. So it's a subtle point, and it's important, therefore, that we always have association with advanced devotees or pure devotees who can, whom we can consult and who can advise us whether the watering is actually nourishing the devotional creeper or whether it might be nourishing the weeds of material desires. But that creeper will grow, as described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and pierce the coverings of the universe and take shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna in the spiritual sky and bear the fruit of love of Godhead, which is exactly what this purport says. So if you can see the verse again, we will find the exact same point. As the river flows on till she reaches the sea, similarly, pure devotional service flows by the association of pure devotees till it reaches the ultimate goal, namely transcendental love of God. Such a flow of devotional service cannot stop. On the contrary, it increases more and more without limitation. The flow of devotional service is so potent that any onlooker also becomes liberated from the influence of the modes of passion and ignorance. So here Srila Prabhupada is referring to the effect that the young Narada, as an onlooker, a young boy who just happened to, in a way, be there by chance, he was an onlooker. But the flow of devotional service is so potent that any onlooker also becomes liberated from the influence of the modes of passion and ignorance, which was the statement of Narada. These two qualities of nature are thus removed, and the living being is liberated, being situated in his original position. So this is the process of liberation, which we all want and desire and need. And that is to hear the unadulterated glories of the Lord from the unadulterated devotees of the Lord. It's so potent. And just that hearing makes one pious, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, second chapter. Shrinvata Svakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana. That Shrinvata Svakata Krishna, just by hearing talks of Krishna, one becomes pious. Transcendentally pious. So yes, now back to the verse. Next verse. So, tasyaiva me nuraktasya prashritasya hataisana shadadanasya balasya dantasyanu charasya cha tasyaiva me nuraktasya prashritasya hatasina shadadanasya balasya dantasyanu charasya cha. Tasya, his, evam, thus, me, mine, anuraktasya, attached to them, prashritasya, obediently, hata, freed from, enasa, sins, shradhanasya, of the faithful, balasya, of the boy, dantasya, subjugated, anucharasya, strictly following the instructions, cha, and. Translation. I was very much attached to those sages. I was gentle in behavior, and all my sins were eradicated in their service. In my heart, I had strong faith in them. I had subjugated the senses, and I was strictly following them with body and mind. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. These are the necessary qualifications of a prospective candidate who can expect to be elevated to the position of pure, unadulterated devotee. Such a candidate must always seek the association of pure devotees. In fact, this verse and purport give a complete prescription for us. devotees or aspiring devotees, how we can achieve the position of pure devotional service. So we should take note very carefully. Such a candidate must always seek the association of pure devotees. One should not be misled by a pseudo-devotee. So in the previous verse, the great sages were described as Mahatmas, great souls, and Munibi, thoughtful philosophers. And so who is a Mahatma? The Bhagavad Gita describes Mahatma, Bahonam Janmanam Ante Jnanavamam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabhaha. So Bahonam Janmanam Ante, after many births and deaths, Jnanavamam Prapadyante, one who is actually wise, surrenders to Krishna. Vasudeva Sarvam Iti, understanding that Krishna or Vasudeva is the supreme cause of all causes. Samahatma Sudurlabhaha, such a great soul is very rare. So this is the type of Mahatma that we have to find. Mahatmanas tumam partham daivim prakriti ashrita. The Mahatma has taken shelter of the divine energy, the spiritual energy, who's personified as Srimati Radharani. And they are always engaged in chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord. So such a candidate must always seek the association of devotees. One should not be misled by a pseudo-devotee. And as we discuss the qualities of pure devotees, Mahatmas, we can distinguish between them and pretenders. He means the candidate. He himself must be plain and gentle to receive the instructions of such a pure devotee. So the Sanskrit here really contains very important words. Anuraktasya. So he was very attached to them. So we should be attached to the spiritual master, to the sadhus. And prashritasya is very obedient. So yes, one must be obedient to the spiritual master. In fact, speaking on this verse, Srila Prabhupada says that to disobey the order of the spiritual master is an offense against the holy name. It's mentioned, Gurur Avagya, to disobey the orders of the spiritual master. And sometimes it's said to disobey the orders of the spiritual master and consider him an ordinary human being. If one considers the spiritual master to be an ordinary human being, he'll think, well, why do I have to follow his instructions? I have my own ideas. So Shraddhanasya, Shraddha, faith and attraction. Ado Shraddha. Srila Rupa Goswami describes the different stages of devotional service. And first is Shraddha, Ado Shraddha. Then Tata Sadhu Sangha. associate with devotees, Tata Bhajana Kriya, and engage in devotional service. So this pattern described by Srila Rupa Goswami, Adoshraddha Tata Sadhu Sangha Tata Bhajana Kriya, was followed by our own Narada Muni as a child. So coming back to the purport, he himself must be plain and gentle to receive the instructions of such a pure devotee. A pure devotee is a completely surrendered soul unto the personality of Godhead. He knows the personality of Godhead as the supreme proprietor and all others as his servitors. And by the association of pure devotees only, one can get rid of all sins accumulated by mundane association. As Srila Narottam Das Thakur, he glorifies pure devotees. And he says that by repeated bathing in the Ganges, one becomes purified of sins. But just by seeing the sadhu or the Vaishnav Thakur, just by seeing the Vaishnav Thakur, one is immediately cleansed of all sins. And in order to engage in devotional service, we must be free from sins. The four pillars of sinful life are meat eating, intoxication, illicit sex, and gambling. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada has strictly prohibited these activities, these sinful activities, in his disciples and followers. And it's also stated in the Bhagavad Gita that one must be free from sins in order to engage in devotional service. But that becoming free from sins can take place by associating with pure devotees. A neophyte devotee must faithfully serve the pure devotee, and he should be very much obedient and strictly follow the instructions. These are the signs of a devotee who is determined to achieve success even in the existing duration of life. And we should be determined to achieve success in this very lifetime. Because if we don't know where we will go or what will become of us. Of course, in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna does say that there is no loss or diminution in devotional service. So in that sense, we can expect, as long as we don't commit any serious offenses, we can expect to continue in our next life. But why should we wait for the next life to attain perfection? We should be determined to achieve success even in the present lifetime. And it is certainly possible. We just have to approach devotional service as recommended by Srila Rupa Goswami in is Upadeshamrita, the nectar of instruction. Utsaha nischayat daryat tatat karma pravartanat. Utsaha means enthusiasm. We must be enthusiastic to progress in devotional service. Actually, without enthusiasm, one cannot be successful in any activity. So that's the first one, utsaha, enthusiasm. Utsaha nischayat daryat. Daryat means patience. We should also be patient. If we don't feel that we're successful right away, we shouldn't give up, but we should be patient and depend on the mercy of the Lord and expect the mercy of the Lord. And these two qualities, patience and enthusiasm, are both required. Srila Prabhupada said that if one had that enthusiasm without patience can lead to a desire to control, and patience without enthusiasm can lead to lethargy, means like laziness. So we need both of these. And if we approach devotional service, bhakti yoga, with enthusiasm and patience, associating with pure devotees, chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord, and strictly following the orders of the spiritual master, with being attached to the spiritual master and faithful to the spiritual master and obedient to the spiritual master, one can achieve complete success even in this very lifetime. That is our hope, and that is our expectation. If we follow this process, we can expect to achieve that glorious result by the mercy of Krishna and the parampara and the devotees. Hare Krishna. So thank you all for joining us for this discussion. I would request the participants on Zoom to put on your cameras so I can see your moon-like faces. And yes, if any of the participants have any questions or comments, they can ask. Again, I'll take leave for a minute. In the meantime, you can, collect your thoughts and see if you have any questions or comments.
Yes, Maharaj. Please, if you have question, kindly raise your hand, or you can write it on the chat room, so we can call you one after the other.
Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Maharaj, you're welcome back. I have one question from the previous verse. When Narada Prabhupada said in the purport that even the onlookers, they get liberated when they associate with devotees. The onlookers.
Yes.
So my question is, when we go on Harinam on the streets, the onlookers, they see devotees around the world, but they don't seem to be liberated to join devotional service.
Well, they are freed from sins, but the problem is that they okay, Narada Muni, as an onlooker, he was freed from sins, but he took shelter of the sadhus or the Bhaktivedantas, and he followed their instructions. And so he remained free from sins. And beyond that, he advanced in devotional service. But there's immense benefit for people who just, as onlookers, see the Harinam party. There's immense benefit. And even if it doesn't bear fruit immediately, but it will, in due course, bear fruit. So yeah, it's really, really very good how we, devotees go out on Harinam. And in one talk, Srila Prabhupada was emphasizing, how important it is that devotees go out to give people an opportunity to hear. So that's very very important activity that we go out, and it gives the onlookers great benefit. As Srila Prabhupada said, the Harinam Sankirtan on the street, it will knock on the doors of the hearts of the people. So.
Thank you, Maharaj. We have a question on the chat room. Jai Chaitanya is asking, in the course of your lecture, you mentioned relationship and patience, enthusiasm. So he's asking, what is the difference between confidence and determination in relation to patience and enthusiasm? Confidence and determination in relation to patience and enthusiasm. What's the difference?
They're all necessary. But yeah, I would say confidence increases both enthusiasm and patience. Because if you're confident that you're going to make it, so you'll be enthusiastic. Well, I'm actually going to make it. So, and you'll also be patient because, okay, I am going to make it. Maybe not this second or this minute, but I am going to make it. So I can, I'll wait until that fortunate moment comes. And determination, we have to be determined. We have to be determined that in this very lifetime, I will be successful. And if we have that determination and we're enthusiastic and patient and follow the prescribed methods, then we will be successful. In his purport, in the Upadeshamrita to this, Utsaha Nischaya Daryat Tatat Karma Pravartanat, confidence. Srila Prabhupada writes that devotional service is so pure and powerful that one is ultimately, that one is dragged to ultimate success. So that's very encouraging.
Thank you, Maharaj. Sidney Knoll says, I have lots of enthusiasm, not so much patience. Please advise.
Wait, who says?
Sidney Knoll.
Oh, Sydney.
Yeah, he has a lot of enthusiasm. He doesn't have patience. That you should advise what he should do.
My advice is where is Sydney? Is Sydney on the, can I
Sydney,
speak?
kindly unmute yourself, please, with your camera.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
So you have enthusiasm, but not much patience.
Yes.
And can you ascertain the reason for your lack of patience?
I guess excited to learn more, and I get very disappointed with myself if I don't meet my own goals. And I guess so I've got lack of patience, and maybe I'm trying to go too fast or not taking time or something like that.
Yeah. Well, it's good that you're so enthusiastic. But as they say, Rome wasn't built in a day. So your complete devotional character also will not be built in a day. And so you have to be patient. But are you confident that in the end you'll be successful?
Yes.
So then you don't need to be impatient. It will come.
Thank you. Hare
Okay.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, our next question is from Sahadev Prabhu from Gita Nagare. Sahadev, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for giving us your divine association again.
Okay.
My question is from the previous verse, which is 1:5:28, because you were saying they are very much connected to each other. And in the third sentence, Srila Prabhupada writes, if by the grace of the Lord and the great-souled devotees of the Lord, a living being becomes fortunate enough to associate with the unadulterated devotees of the Lord. So my question here is, Srila Prabhupada used if instead of when, which means there is a condition. So my question is, what causes the Lord and the great souled devotees to shower their grace on a particular person? I need it so badly this lifetime. I want to go home this lifetime. I don't want to procrastinate. So what do I have to do to gain the grace of the Lord and the great soul devotees? That's my question. Hare Krishna.
Well, I took the if in a different way. So if by the grace of the Lord and the great soul devotees of the Lord, a living being becomes fortunate enough to associate with the unadulterated devotees. I took that as the if. If the living being is fortunate to associate with great soul devotees, but if he is fortunate enough to associate with unadulterated devotees, then certainly the flow of devotional service takes place like the flow of a river. So I don't think you have to worry. The great soul devotees by nature are merciful. They're not going to withhold their mercy from you. So the if means if you're fortunate enough to get their association, but if you are fortunate enough to get their association, then certainly the flow of devotional service takes place like the flow of a river. So I think you're safe.
Thank you, Guru.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, Maharaj. I have one more question from the verse of today, the current verse, where Prabhupada mentioned one should not be misled by a pseudo devotee. This word pseudo devotee, when we join the temple or join devotional service, we don't really know who is a pseudo devotee, and we associate with everybody. So how does a new bhakta distinguish a pseudo devotee and an advanced devotee for his own spiritual progress?
Well, I think Srila Prabhupada's intention here is that there are pseudo devotees outside of ISKCON, and one should not be misled by them. Now, there is a possibility that there could be a pseudo devotee in ISKCON, but I would say the proportion of pseudo devotees in ISKCON as compared with genuine devotees is very small. And yesterday I had a very nice conversation with one of my god brothers, and in which he quoted Srila Prabhupada as saying that that we don't need a police force in ISKCON because Krishna himself will arrange for the pretenders to be exposed.
That's a good one.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So I think we can take for granted that the devotees in ISKCON are genuine, and that the warning about pseudo devotees is for pretenders outside of ISKCON.
Thank you, Maharaj.
But one thing I could say, that we as individuals can think that we are pretenders. In fact, that's healthy. Yeah. My dear god brother Burijan Das, he said, because that happens, when you make an effort to chant japa attentively, you become aware of your weaknesses and failings. So he said, whenever anyone criticizes him or blames him or finds fault with him, he always thinks that they're underestimating his faults. That if they knew what he was really like, they would have much worse things to say about him. So that way we, as humble, introspective devotees, we can feel that we're pretenders, but, or pseudo devotees, but we shouldn't see the others as pseudo devotees, and they're not. And it's kind of the real deal.
In the last line of the purports of today, Prabhupada also mentioned that the devotee should be very much obedient and strictly follow the instructions. So my question is, in the modern world, how do we distinguish when one is being used like in the olden days, like a slave, or being abused? Why you say you must strictly be obedient? What happens to free will of the individual?
No, being obedient means obedient to the spiritual master. It doesn't mean obedient to materialistic people. But yes, we should be obedient to the spiritual master, to the saintly persons. And in fact, Srila Prabhupada instructed us to address one another as Prabhu. Prabhu means master. And, Srila Prabhupada said, so how can the master be disobeyed? So that's good amongst devotees, to be obedient, but it doesn't mean we have to be obedient to materialistic people. A lot of parents, they don't want their children to join. They don't want their children to become Krishna conscious, but we don't have to be obedient to them. And so there's like a really important verse in the 5th canto, Guror Nasasyat, Pita Nasasyat, that no one should become a guru, no one should become a father, no one should become a mother, no one should become a husband, no one should become a superior relative unless one can deliver one's dependence from the repetition of birth and death. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that if one is not able to do that, then one is not a real guru, one is not a real father, one is not a real mother, one is not a real husband. And then he gives examples in the purport. For example, the son, if the father is attacked, the son should defend the father from the attacker. But when Hiranyakashipu was attacked by Nrsingadev, Prahlad didn't make any effort to protect his father because he wasn't a real father, because he wasn't delivering him from the repetition of birth and death. And there are many examples. It's an offense, as we just discussed, to disobey the orders of the guru. But when Shukracharya instructed Bali Maharaj not to give everything to Krishna, to Vamanadev, Bali Maharaj disobeyed him. But it wasn't a fault because he wasn't a real guru, because he wasn't delivering his dependent from the repetition of birth and death.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah.
You made mention about master should not be disobeyed like the guru. So my question is, when we join devotional service, they call us Bhakta. But we see in the scripture that Bhakta is a pure devotee of Krishna. Then when we get initiation, they add Prabhu, no more Bhakta. So master and Bhakta, which one is higher to really be used to address the devotee?
Bhakta is higher.
So why do we give it to a non-initiate when they join the temple? Bhakta, Bhaktin, Then after initiation, we withdraw it and give them Prabhu.
Yeah, in that context, bhakta and bhakti means like a beginner. But in an absolute sense, bhakta is a very high designation, devotee. But in that context, a new person we call bhakta so and so or bhaktin so and so. And then when they're initiated, we call them Prabhu, which is good because there are masters, there are Prabhus. We're the servant of the Vaishnavas, so that the Vaishnavas are Prabhus. So.
Thank you, Maharaj. Sahadev, your hand is still up. One more question.
Yes. Well, I see there are like 73 or so participants, so I do not want to prevent others from asking questions. But
I agree. I think we should let others ask, and then I can come back to you if in the meantime your question hasn't been answered.
Okay. My question, Maharaj, I don't think it's particularly in relationship to the text, but I believe that the way Srila Prabhupada designed ISKCON is such scientific that everything has purpose. And so men are addressed as Prabhus and women are addressed as mothers. But I see in today's ISKCON, mostly women are oftentimes addressed as Prabhus, which to me is improper. And I don't know if you have anything to say about that, because I think Srila Prabhupada expected us to address every woman other than our wife as mothers, so that we keep that in our minds, because this world is understood to be called as Matunya Agaria. Everybody is obsessed with sex, but if you address a woman other than your wife as a mother, then you will understand that this is somebody I cannot touch. But in today's ISKCON, we oftentimes address women as Prabhus. So I don't think it's proper, but I don't know if you have anything to say about that. Thank you.
Well, okay, that's true. You wouldn't touch your mother. Would you touch your master? If your master is a woman, would you touch your master?
Unfortunately, it's very common in the material world, yes. Unfortunately.
Well, but we're not in the material world. We're talking about ISKCON. I don't really have a problem. I don't really have a problem. I mean, Mataji is more usual, and but I don't have a problem, Prabhu, with addressing a woman as Prabhu. I don't have that ego that a woman can't be my Prabhu. Is that all right, Sahadev?
Thank you, Maharaj. Yes.
Yeah, I was at I think we were in Vrindavan. I was with His Holiness Ratatvaraja Swami a few years ago, and there were women in the audience. It was at might have even been at Yamuna Devi's Samadhi, but it was outdoors in Vrindavan. And before he began speaking, he addressed the ladies as Mataji, Prabhus, Devi, Whatever will make you happy.
Gopis.
Well, not Gopi, because in the early days of ISKCON, we used to call the ladies gopis. And Srila Prabhupada said it wasn't proper because the gopis are very elevated. But we did, in the early days, we used to call the ladies gopis. Sahadev, I see that you think very deeply about many important subjects.
Thank you, Maharaj. I try.
And I really feel happy when I join the Nigerian Sangha, because I have such fond memories of when I visited Nigeria. It was one of the best times of my whole Krishna consciousness. Yeah, when I went to Nigeria
Gauranga.
to collect for Juhu. Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, there is a comment in the translation that Dhruva Maharaj, that Nadamuni was saying. He was mentioning that he was gentle in behavior, and all his sins were eradicated in their service. So this brings me to a question that many devotees are also in service of their spiritual masters for many years. Yet they are not gentle in behavior, neither are they attached to the Guru, neither do they have such faith in the Guru. But Nadamuni just mentioned the qualities, what he developed by associating with this Vedantist. So what is happening? Does it mean our gurus are not as strong as them, or because we are in Kali Yuga that we don't have such faith like Nadamuni has, and we're not even gentle in behavior? We are all ruffians, mafians, for example.
Yeah.
So what is happening? Anybody who is given a little authority in the movement becomes a mafia. Where are we not gentle in behavior?
Yeah, even Srila Prabhupada, this is addressing the question about the potency of the Guru. Even Srila Prabhupada had disciples who were not gentle. So we can't say that if a disciple is not gentle, it's because the Guru is not powerful enough. But Srila Prabhupada would dovetail their rough natures in devotional service. His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami used to say that Srila Prabhupada never discriminated against a devotee on the basis of what mode he was in. But whatever mode he was in, Srila Prabhupada would engage him or her. So yeah, we should have that liberal attitude. But at the same time, we should be gentle, at least with other devotees. Srila Prabhupada's female disciples would go out to distribute books. And in the course of book distribution, they would have to be quite forward with the people they approached, including the men. But when they came back to the temple, they were supposed to be very reserved with the men. And so I think Srila Prabhupada said something like, anyway, I'm not remembering. It was a phrase. Something like a lion on the chase. How does that go? Shraddhanjali, you're learned. A lion on the chase and something at home.
A lamb.
A lamb at home, that's it. A lion on the chase and a lamb at home. So, yeah, so that was how Srila Prabhupada advised his lady book distributors. So yeah, for service, we can be like a lion, but at home we should be like gentle lambs.
Thank you, Maharaj. We have question from Kavikanapura Prabhu. Kavikanapu, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much for the wonderful lecture, Maharaj, for your time. So my question is regarding to you mentioned about pseudo devotee or pretenders. So, and also going deep into me, I see that most of the time when I do my devotional service in the presence of devotees, I tend to pretend a lot to be a very wonderful devotee. So I want to know whether pretending to be a nice devotee in the association of devotee, but in my heart, I know that I'm not what I'm showing others. So how to really be that devotee I'm trying to present myself to be when I'm not.
Yeah, Srila Prabhupada said that there's a difference between Krishna consciousness and the material world. That in the material world, you have to have the qualification first. Whereas in Krishna consciousness, you act as if you had the qualification, and then the qualification follows. So, yeah, just, I mean, I think just keep trying, and you'll be, like they say. I mean, I lived in India for 30 years, and I never picked up all these phrases that I've learned in America. But one that I learned in America is fake it until you make it.
Devotees will like that one, Maharaj. I'm going to be faking it now as a pure devotee.
And another thing, I don't know how, bona fide it is, but there was I guess you could say an entertainer in America. They had circuses, Barnum and Bailey. So P.T. Barnum, he said the main thing in the entertainment and industry is sincerity. If you can fake that, you've got it made.
That's interesting.
So Chandni Doshi's been raising her hand for a while. Should we call
Please
her?
unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Please
Hare
accept my
Krishna.
humble obeisance. Thank you for the class, Guru Maharaj. It was very nice. I had two questions. But I'll ask one, and if you like, I can ask the other one too. So in the verse 28, 1.528, it mentions about being uncovered by the modes of passion and ignorance. So my question was that when somebody is in the mode of goodness, like does that mean that they will take up to devotional service? or it can be that a person in mode of goodness does not take devotional service, or like where does the mode of goodness come in?
Well, Srila Prabhupada gave the example of dry grass and damp grass and wet grass. Like if a spark falls on dry grass, it will likely catch fire. If it falls on moist grass, it might or might not. And if it falls on wet grass, it likely will not catch fire. So the mode of goodness is compared to the dry grass. And that spark of Krishna consciousness will very likely ignite the dry grass or the person in the mode of goodness. And mode of passion, less so, and mode of ignorance, even more unlikely, but still possible.
Thank you very much. Is it okay to ask the second question?
Yes, please.
Yes.
So it's on verse 29, 1.529. I wanted to ask that it was mentioned that like a devotee, so to to go back home, back to Godhead, he needs to be enthusiastic, patient, and follow the instructions of the spiritual master, hear and chant. I was wondering if somebody takes to this process or if somebody comes across Krishna consciousness like in the last stage of his life, and he or she takes this process very seriously towards the last stage of life, can they still go back home, back to Godhead, even though if it's towards the end of their life?
Yes. Yes, in one purport in the Bhagavad Gita, because yes, generally it's better to start early. As Prahlad Maharaj says, Komara Acharat Pragya, Dharman Bhagavatamiha. Should begin from the tender age of childhood. But in this purport in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that again, that Krishna consciousness is so pure and potent that even a late beginner can achieve ultimate success.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thanks a lot. Hare Krishna.
Any other question, please? No hand is up. If you have question, kindly unmute and ask your question. Maharaj, may we ask you how long do we have?
Death may come at any moment. We don't know how long we have.
Okay. So anyone has a question, please continue asking questions. Maharaj is here with us maybe 5 hours. Sadev Prabhu have more questions. Sadev, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you again. Srila Prabhupada is so merciful that the way he designed ISKCON, he designed it in such a way that even if one should lose his father, he still has lots of uncles to depend on. So
yes, that's true.
Somebody like me, I'm very grateful to Srila Prabhupada that even though my father is no more physically here with me, but I have somebody like you as an uncle I can depend on. So I say thank you to Srila Prabhupada and thank you to all of you. Now, my question has to do with Srila Prabhupada in the purport used the word pure devotees. And when you started commenting on that, you used the word good devotees. In other words, some of us, or say lots of us trying to be devotees are not pure devotees yet. Yet we go out to do Harinam Sankirtan. And when these onlookers see us performing Sankirtan, they're supposed to benefit from it, which you've already indicated. Now, somebody else spoke on this platform who indicated that unless one is pure and advanced devotee, he is not allowed to speak on Bhagavatam. Now, this program we have is series of Bhagavatam classes we do. And it's not so easy to have very advanced devotees speak on the Bhagavatam every single day. And so whoever is willing to speak on Bhagavatam is given the opportunity to speak. But if we should go by what this advanced devotee said, then at some point we wouldn't have anybody speak on Bhagavatam. So my question is, should devotees be encouraged to practice spiritual life, even though they may not be up to the level of doing certain things like speaking Bhagavatam? But as long as they are willing and trying to speak, they are encouraged to speak the Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. We do want, everyone should speak about Krishna. Shravanam Kirtanam, we hear and we repeat what we've heard. And as long as we repeat what we've heard and, add to it some personal realization or examples, then it will be bona fide. And in fact, that's how devotees, like Srila Prabhupada said, practice makes perfect. So if you practice speaking, you'll become more and more perfect in speaking. So we want devotees to speak. As long as they don't speculate or concoct or imagine. And speaking is very powerful. Srila Prabhupada said that speaking for half an hour is equal to reading for 2 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. It's very powerful. So we should give devotees a chance to speak.
Thank you very much.
Maharaj, I have one controversial question. I will beg you, Your Holiness, to help me clarify this question. I asked it before, but I'm still not yet satisfied with the question, with the answers I got. It's about the guru coming back to save a disciple. Because in one Bhagavatam of Prabhupada, he said the guru will not go back to Krishna if one of his disciples does not attain perfection. So I've been asking, what happens if the guru comes back to save the disciple and the disciple has already become a guru? And the former disciple now has to initiate this guru. So who is the guru and who saves who?
Well, yes, it is a fact that when a spiritual master takes responsibility for a disciple, he commits himself to coming back until the disciple is delivered. Now, there is a subtle question about this, whether it means that the guru has to personally come back or he just has to make sure that the disciple has the guidance that he requires to go back to Godhead. And after Srila Prabhupada left, Tamal Krishna Goswami and I and a couple of other disciples of Srila Prabhupada's went to Srila Prabhupada's learned god brother, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhardev Goswami Maharaj, to ask this question. And initially, Srila Sridhar Maharaj said that it doesn't mean that that the Guru has to come back personally, but he just has to make sure that there are instructors who are there to guide his disciples until they go back home, back to Godhead. But Tamal Krishna Goswami, in his staunch adherence to Srila Prabhupada, pressed Srila Sridhar Maharaj, well, what if we want only Srila Prabhupada? And then Srila Sridhar Maharaj presented a hypothetical conversation between Krishna and Srila Prabhupada in the spiritual world. And in this conversation, Srila Prabhupada says to Krishna that, my disciples are asking for me. And Krishna says, you don't have to go personally. I'll arrange for someone to guide them. And then Srila Prabhupada said, well, they won't accept anyone else. They want only me. And then Krishna said, well, all right, if that's the case, and if you want to go, then you can go personally. So that was how he presented it. But the other way of looking at it is that we should finish up in this lifetime, as stated at the end of the purport. So the Guru doesn't have to come back. You may know the story of Bilva Mangal Thakur, who in his previous life was very advanced. He came to the stage of Bhava Bhakti, but somehow he took birth again. And he became very attached to a prostitute. And some of you might know the story, but anyway, one night, it was actually the night of the death of his father. So he was doing the ceremonies, but he was so attached to this prostitute, he was telling the priest, hurry up, finish, because he wanted to go to the prostitute. And it was raging storms that night. And he had to cross a river, raging river. And somehow, I don't know, I guess one version, I think he caught a dead body, or anyway, maybe a piece of wood. Somehow he crossed the river. And then he went to the prostitute's house. And, it was so late and the weather was so bad that she assumed that he would not be coming. So, she closed the gate and locked up everything. So Bilva Mangal Thakur had to get over the wall. I think like he picked up a dead snake and he used it as a rope to scale the wall. And then eventually he came to her. And she said, oh, Bilva Mangal, you've come tonight. I didn't expect you. And then she said, if you had as much attachment for Krishna as you have for me, it would be much better for you. And those words of the prostitute went deep in his heart. And he immediately left her and set out for Vrindavan to find Krishna. Now, it is said that Bilva Mangal Thakur's spiritual master from his previous life spoke through the prostitute. And Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in urging his disciples to finish up in this very lifetime, and go back home, back to Godhead, he told them, don't make me come back into the house of a prostitute to reclaim you. Finish up in this very lifetime. So we have that opportunity, and in a way it's an obligation. We don't want to take advantage of the spiritual master's promise to come back, but we want to save him from having to come back for us. And we should also help our God brothers and God sisters to go back to Godhead in this very lifetime. Also, for their benefit, of course, and also so that their spiritual master, our spiritual master, doesn't have to come back again.
Thank you, Maharaj. We have last question from Nikita Pama. Nikita Pama, please unmute and ask your question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Right.
Maharaj, I just had a quick question just for clarification. Prabhupada has written in his books that if a devotee does not finish his or her devotional career in this lifetime, he or she can get a birth in the next lifetime to take birth in the family of an aristocrat or a Brahmin. But is there any possibility that a devotee can actually fall into the impersonal Brahman if his or her devotional service becomes offensive in any way in this lifetime and they commit a Vaishnava aparadh? Then what is the next future for the next lifetime? Do they fall from a personal realization to an impersonal realization, or do they continue to take birth in an aristocratic or a Brahmin family?
Oh, well, that's a good question, but the two are not mutually exclusive, because one can still take birth in a family of Brahmins or an aristocratic family and have an impersonal conception. But higher than those two births, yes, Suchinam Shripatam Gehe Yoga Brashta Vijayate, is that one can take birth in a family of devotees, yogis, devotees. And as it said, that one will be attracted to the principles of yoga from one's previous life, even without desiring it. And in the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada writes, or Rupa Goswami says, that generally devotional service is a continuation from the previous life. And especially for someone who has a natural taste for hearing and chanting about Krishna, it's to be understood that he had, engaged in devotional service in his previous life, but somehow did not attain perfection. And Prabhupada adds, usually due to committing some offense. But now the person is given a chance to continue, from where he or she left off. So yeah, there's no loss or diminution. And even a little advancement saves one from the most dangerous fear. Yeah, that's a good question.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Thank you, Maharaj. We have one more hand up. I don't know if you are tired. You need to take rest. We don't want to bother you so much.
No, I'll take one more.
Okay, Sadev, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Well, thank you for giving us such much time of your busy scheduled life. My question has to do with some of the regulations of the GBC. Those of you who are direct disciples of Sri Prabhupada, you worshipped him as scriptures recommend that we worship the Guru. In today's ISKCON, those of us who are not direct disciples of Sri Prabhupada, we have Sri Prabhupada's disciples as our gurus. But we are not somehow allowed to worship our gurus as Sri Prabhupada's disciples who worship Sri Prabhupada. A crude example is when we do arati on the altar, the understanding is that you offer the paraphernalia to your guru, and your guru passes it on and on till it gets to Krishna. But in most temples, devotees are refrained from keeping the deity of their guru on the altar. Some places they are asked to put the deity of the guru, the living guru, on a shelf or something, which to me, in the purport, Narada Muni was explaining that in his heart, he had so much faith in the sages. So if we do not have the faith that our gurus are as good as Sri Prabhupada in the sense of being able to take us back home, back to Godhead, it weakens our faith. So why would the GBC prevent us as second generation of ISKCON keeping our gurus on the altar? At least that's for offering the arati.
Well, I mean, that's a good question. What I understand, the general procedure is that when a disciple of one of Srila Prabhupada's disciples offers arti, or offers bhoga and offers arti, he places the picture of his guru on the altar. And that's proper, because we don't approach, say if you're a grand disciple, we don't approach Srila Prabhupada directly, but we approach him through our spiritual master. So that's proper. But then after the offering and the arti, we take the picture down, because we want to preserve Srila Prabhupada's position as the founder Acharya. It's not necessarily even a question of advancement, but he's the founder Acharya for everyone in ISKCON, now and forever in the future. And so to preserve his position as the founder Acharya, and to avoid factions amongst disciples of different gurus, so we remove the picture after the offering, okay, which is fine. I think it's all perfect.
Thank you very much for the answer, Maharaj. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. All right. Well, if we've come to the end of our meeting, I suggest...
Yes, Maharaj, we come to the end, and we thank you so much for coming to help us know about Krishna and the association. We hope that we can be able to have Your Holiness again one day in 2021. Thank you so much. We ask all devotees to kindly unmute yourselves and let's chant Hare Krishna for Maharaj for coming. Kindly unmute.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna,
Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
His Holiness GIRIRAJ Maharaj Ki Jai.